My name's Kevin. I'm the Typical Cripple, and I'm with.
Bizarre Azar.
And I'm going to give you another story of my life. So, we were at the end of grad school, and I came home because the money for living in Hawaii ran out. And I came home, and I had to live with my mother and stepfather, and I think my uncle was there, all in a house. And yeah, it was interesting because I was living in mom's basement, and she was like, "Oh, how long are you gonna be here?" I'm like, "I'm not really sure."
Did she at least give you chicken nuggies? Sorry.
I don't think the chicken nuggets were a real thing,
No, it was before the. But
but
we, the meme is more recent.
yes. Um, but um, no, my mom gave me shelter. I told her I think it'd take a few weeks, but that took a lot longer. When we got the plane, I went to the state office in Seattle and got signed up. And then it took 3.5 months for them to follow through on the paperwork. And that was tough. Mom used to wake me up with, "When are you going to leave my basement?" I'd say in response, "Is there something you want me to do that I'm not currently doing?" And it was just a rough time. Um, I told the case manager, "I think she's going to send me out." And the case manager's response was, "I think we can put you in a hotel." I'm like, "How's that going to work?" "Well, you pay." And I looked at what I was getting from Social Security, and then what it cost to be in the hotel. I'm like, if I only spent money on the hotel, I'd only get through half the month. And that had no bearing on what this person thought was a good option for me to go. And that was back in 2000. 2000. Um, so I finally got a Section 8 voucher through the YWCA, Young Women's Christian Organization. Anyway, and I was able to get moved into an apartment nearby. And then for a number of months, I didn't see mom at all. She was just like, "You got it." And I think I called her once to come over and turn off the dryer because the caregiver had left it on, and then it would beep and then go into a cycle.
Right. To
And
keep
you're
wrinkle free.
at like 11 o'clock at night going, "Damn, this thing's going too long. Mom, come help me out." And so she did. And I had these three ladies helping me out, and they were pretty bad. I do remember one of them was really nice and fairly confident, but the other two were awful. As a matter of fact, one of them brought her was fighting with her boyfriend, and then she comes running through the door. I hear something going on in the parking lot, and she's like, "He's out in the parking lot. He's got a crowbar, and he's beating up my car." And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and it's like, if he comes in the door, I will shoot him because at the time that he's carrying a gun. Yeah, it was pretty rough neighborhood. And um, that was insane. A little while later, I ended up getting rid of them and getting an agency to help out. and while going to grad school, I got a job at AmeriCorps, and that was a flippin', that was horrible. I was working in a school, an alternative school, and they were woke back in 2000. And this is all pre 9/11. Can you remember anything before 9/11?
Yeah, but I was pretty young.
Right, I'm pretty old.
Yeah.
And do I look old?
You look like a baby.
Oh. How old do I look?
Uh,
Just looking at me and measuring all my gray in my beard.
in your 40s.
48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you might have told me that before.
Yeah. Kind of colors perception, doesn't
You got a little more than a decade on me.
it? Yeah, I do. Anyway, but AmeriCorps. Yeah, I was once. So I was a lot more snarky back then, and I was. So AmeriCorps. My first introduction to AmeriCorps was I was told to show up in Federal Way at the rhododendron garden exhibit for warehouses. And it was raining and wet, and I went out there, and I noticed the bus only went out so far. So I took the bus, went over the I-5, and drove my wheelchair where wheelchairs ought not to drive to get to AmeriCorps, and they're like, "Oh, come on over, Kevin. Here, have a pair of shears. We're cutting stuff up." And I'm like, "Cool." And they're like, "We want you to take this pile of twigs and cut them up into smaller pile of twigs." Like, okay, whatever. So I'm doing this, and each person is coming by like, "Oh, hey, just want to say hi." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then we're all having lunch, and then I start talking about World War II, and this guy's like, "Well, actually, he starts talking about World War II as well," and he corrects me on a point where I was talking about Higgins boats. He's like, "Those weren't Navy. Those were Coast Guard." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Everyone looks at us like we're just on planet Mars. Because it's like, and a little bit later, I had time to talk to them. They're like, "We all thought you were retarded." And I'm like, what gave you that idea? "Well, you move kind of slow." So I come up with this idea. I'm crippled, not retarded. There's a difference. My uncle also had a phrase, exemplified the guys I was volunteering at the police force as in their traffic division, and my uncle always had to say, "Kevin's only recourse is lethal force." Kevin's not going to fight you, he just shoot you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Well,
a lot of female.
He'll shout at you first.
Well, if shouting doesn't work,
Then it's straight to bullets.
Well, there's a lot of other alternatives with me, is there? No?
Not really.
It's like, you hit like a girl implies that you're able-bodied.
Yeah.
Hit like an infant.
Hit like a cripple.
I'm offended. It's not just the name of my channel or anything. Anyway, so, yeah, that was interesting. I met one of my best friends, and, anyway, life started to move on. And one of the things I noticed not being on campus is life is like way harder on the outside. In that if you want to get from one place to another, It's not, go out by the quad, follow the mall, and hook a right at the parking lot and go there. It was go 3 miles down this road that may or may not have sidewalks, and then hook a right, and maybe you might get a road with the sidewalk, but there's probably glass, and I have tires filled with air. And by the way, it rains and pours, and I had a job, and one time on my way to school, I got hit by a truck.
Wow.
Yeah, it nearly tipped me over. And then when I got to school, I'm like, do you see any damage? Because, and the lady was like, did you get his insurance? I'm like, what? That's a thing? She's like, you got hit by a car, it's covered. I'm like, I am such a noob. Did you hear that okay? I'm such a noob.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what life was about. And that was a serious problem with that.
I mean, I think most people coming out of college don't know what life is about, but that
Right.
doesn't necessarily, there's not as, like, it's a lot harder to overcome those extra challenges if you don't have the ability to,
Right.
yeah.
Well, one time I was late for work and I was on the way to school. And I'm like, man, my bag's feeling really heavy. I had a 9mm in there.
Oops.
I went to school anyway, just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And then went home disarmed. But things like this were things that were like real. It wasn't like fake in school where it's all contrived. And one of the things I learned was, life on the outside is another level than life on campus. And I had even in the midst of that, I could do it to a certain extent, but when it came to interfacing with people, it was hard. I remember one time a friend of mine was like, hey, we're all getting together, we're going up to the Space Needle on New Year's, you want to come? And I'm just like, can you pick me up? She's like, we're in Redmond. I'm like, I can't go. And she's like, just take the bus. I'm like, so I'm going to go up there for 4 hours, 3-hour ride up, hang out with you for 4 hours back. And by the time I get back, it's 3 a.m. Who's going to put me to bed? Not you. That sucked. That was a sifting, if you will. And I had a hard time with that, which made it hard to date, which made it hard to be around. Yeah, it was one of those things where you can't show up, you can't participate. You got any questions? No.
No.
Super serious day.
Yeah.
Sorry to harsh everyone's mellow, but this is my life, and depressing, isn't it? All right.
Why aren't you more bitter, Kevin?
Ah! Why aren't I more bitter? Why?
Oh, we covered that in a different video.
What?
We covered that in a different video.
Yes, but so I'm fading pretty fast. All right, well, you got your short video. Anything you want to say?
No. I'm just enjoying the story. Your suffering is entertaining me.
At least you're honest. I can rely on that.
I mean, it was kind of a joke.
Do you have any questions about my life or anything?
I usually
Can you
pose
feed
them.
me some bones here?
I usually pose them as we're going.
Right.
Put me on the spot here.
Well, it's your show too.
Uh,
Bizarro. Turn
um,
my life upside down if you dare.
uh,
What? So, I got a story. One time I had this really cute caregiver, and she spoke Spanish because her husband and her had this um, business where they hired Mexican labor. And so I was out pushing the wheelchair for exercise, and she's like, "Ha!" I'm like, "What? What's going on?" "Those guys over there think I'm sleeping with you." I look over, it's the Mexicans talking with one another. And I'm like, "Why would they say that?" And it's like, "Well, because we're together. They don't understand that." But they think, they're sitting there talking back and forth in Spanish as and trying to figure out, why is that woman helping this guy out? Oh, they must be knocking boots. And it's like, oh, okay. Weird. Whatever.
do well.
But are
Do they
you
not?
so?
Do you think that the concept of a caregiver was outside the realm of their
Yes. Yes.
understanding?
Well, in their parlance, why am I not on the side of the road begging? I once was in Yakima and I had a 20 in my hand, and this Mexican guy comes up. And his daughter, who's like 3, gives me a 5. And I'm like, I don't. My professor was like, take the freaking 5. Just shut up. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, muchos gracias, saying, Lord bless you in Spanish. And I looked at that and like, I had a 20 in this hand and a 5 in the other. And I just like took it to church and put it in the plate because I didn't know what to do with it. And it was the weirdest thing ever. But I mean,
It was culturally normal, I guess.
that is normally people do in other cultures. One time I was in Bali and they're like, hey, bring guy on bicycle. There was no word for wheelchair. At least I never learned it. So it's one of those things. But in Federal Way, it was hard because it was like everyone expected you to be cool on your own. It was very lonely. When I went to church, I remember this one time in church, on my way to church, it was like pea soup fog in the dark. And I was going through this neighborhood, and you can hear cars before you see them, and they never saw me. It's like full-on gorillas in the mist with headlights and taillights. And I'm like going along the road, I hear a car, I duck off to the side, and I just watch them float by like ships in the dark. I'm like looking around going, nobody's seeing me. So now you carry a flashlight.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need some taillights or something.
Well, these were one time I was in Federal Way, and I was up by the 7-Eleven by 288th and Military Road, and this woman comes out of nowhere. Hey, I see you here every day. Can I give this to you? And it was a little, flasher for like bicycles. I'm like, oh, cool. It's a really nice thing. I used to put it on my side pouch. And I'd turn it on when I go around. Yeah, it was weird. I also had a job at National Oceanic and Atmospheric. Ooh, I have show and tell.
Okay.
Closet. Go around. I want a prize. It's a blue coat. Careful. Blue coat. Might be in there. Yes, yes. Look at the lapel. Proof positive. Show that to the camera. So, this is where I worked. Yee! Go fisheries! I worked for ecotoxicology and the marine fisheries department. I actually produced a map for them as well, which was just, they had somebody there that didn't know what they were doing. So they just populated the map with names and they didn't know where to place them. So I just sorted it out and applied cartographic principles.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, that is so cool. I'm like, I can tell they're being
Sarcastic.
I couldn't tell because these were all vegan, hippie types. And so they're like, everything I do is amazing. It's like, I raised my hand. Oh my God, Kevin, you're amazing. And I'm like, why? Because, don't do it again.
It's a miracle.
The crippled dogs. And yeah, it was crazy. One time I had a friend, and we were at the urinals, and he's like, "Hey, I see you around. I just want to say hi." And he looks at me. I look at him, and like, we're both peeing. He's like, well, I'd shake your hand, but probably only give you my pee-pee. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't swing that way. He's like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And like, it's Seattle. He's like, oh, sorry, dude, bad form on me. And I'm like, all right, so we got to hanging out. And we got to talk intelligent design from the evolutionary perspective. And we sat down and we read together. What was the movie with Firefox? No, Firefox. Michael Crichton book, the first one, The Andromeda Strain. And that was where they had a life form from space that ate plastic. And they would have to go into a biocontainment where they limited their intake so it would deal with infection and whatnot. And they discovered this life form was intelligently designed and from the alien intelligence. And he was like, oh, dude, that sounds so much like intelligent design. Which started a conversation between us on theology. And ultimately it came down to he literally loved his sin more than God. Even though we'd argued to the point where it's like the Precambrian explosion was a thing, dude. And it's like, I know there's no rational punctuated equilibrium doesn't take care of it. I'm like, I know, dude, so the poof, there it is theory proves God. And he's like, well, if that's true, then I have a responsibility. And my dad was sitting over in the corner, doing computer stuff. He jumps up and he leaves my house, slams the door. And my dad does this like slow golf clap. Do the golf clap, please. Yeah, yeah, just like looking at Dad, looking at him, looking at where he was. I'm like, you saw that, right? He's like, yes. And I couldn't be more proud of you. And just like, wow, that was awesome. It was. I hope. I got a book from that guy, Darwin's Black Box.
Yeah, that's an accurate description.
What? Darwin's Black Box?
Yeah.
Have you ever read Darwin's Black Box?
No. But
I got a
sounds about right.
He gave me a hand sign right by the blue book with the cross. Lutheran worship? Yes. This is a hand signed copy of Darwin's Black Box that he bought me online for Christmas that year. It's one of my prizes. That show out the inscription. Michael B. Thank you. So I mean, that was amazing to go through. I mean, I wish I kept in touch with the guy, but after you kind of whittle him down to that nub, it's kind of hard to remain friends. But yeah, I've lived a little. You might say.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, this guy has got to go eat, otherwise he's going to get really hangry with me. He might overturn something or say a bad word.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for watching. My name's Kevin on the Typical Cripple.
And I'm Bizarro.
See you on the next bounce. Bye-bye.